Rhaenys, I'm gonna miss you so much, man. But Eve Best, the actress who plays Rhaenys, discussed the character, her epic final moments in this big variety interview that I want to go through with y'all so we can just, mourn and just, talk about what the actress thinks and, all that. Like, let's get into it. Okay, so Variety says House of the Dragon actor Eve Best on Rhaenys' game-changing scene and filming that epic dragon battle. She had to take that responsibility. So I'm going to skip around. You already know how we do it here. Just the important parts. If you want to see the full article, the link to it, of course, as usual, is in my description box. So skipping forward, the interviewer asked Eve Best, I've read a little bit about the harness setup the actors use for the dragon riding. Can you tell me a bit about practically filming that final sequence? So she said, what you see cut together, obviously, is absolutely polar opposite to what actually happens, which I can only imagine the tediousness of, because that scene was so good from start to finish. I didn't want to take my eye off the screen, the dragon sequences at the end of episode 4. Y'all ate that shit up so good. It was so good. So she said, first of all, we're all on our own. We all do it individually. That makes sense. I kind of figured they would do each actor does their performances individually. This particular sequence, because it was so long, the boys each had about a week to shoot their stuff. Mine was 2 weeks. Because she's through the whole battle, she's there, which makes sense. She really was there, my girl. She goes on. She says it was a really complicated sequence, and it was 2 weeks of just me on this. It's like the size of a small house, really. This big electronic moving thing. I've been told it's a bit like a bucking bronco. I've never been on a bucking bronco, but I've been told that it's similar. It's got a saddle on the top of it, and you have to go up a flight of steps to get to it. And it's kind of like the dragons, though. They have to walk up. Even Vhagar, they have to climb some shit to even get to the top. So it makes sense. Then you're strapped into the saddle, and the house starts to move. When we did it in season 1, it was moving a fair bit, but it never got really, really violent. But this time there were some complicated moves. It was quite intricate choreography that had to be plotted, all these turns. And she was upside down. So you're moving around, my legs crushed under me as it's going around and around. I tell you, it was a very good workout for my thighs and for my core strength. Pilates, eat your heart out. Yeah, so I can imagine season 1 is just okay, the thing is moving a little bit, especially because she just broke out of what she was doing. She was just flying around on Meleys, and she broke out of the dragon pit and just turned around and left. So it's just it's not a lot compared to a full-on battle. But the fact that it's the size of a small house is so oh my gosh. And then you gotta pretend that Sir Kristen Cole's over there or Aemon's over here and look there. I'm just y'all are talented doing this stuff. That's crazy. She goes on, she said, I felt extremely not in my comfort zone. I definitely kept asking for more cushions and needed more padding on my knees and feeling very ill-equipped to cope with all of this. And at the same time as it's moving, they've got 4 guys with enormous leaf blowers blowing wind in your face. You can hardly hear a thing because there's all this sound of the wind. And then you've got a director yelling into a microphone somewhere in the distance, look up, there's Vhagar, Aemon's coming in. And you can hardly think straight. You're thinking, I've got this really intense moment for Rhaenys and I've got to focus. But you're just clinging on for dear life in some cases. There was one moment that was a particularly elaborate move. It was when the dragons were spiraling. It had to look like she was doing this 360 turn with Vhagar, and she was hanging upside down for a fair bit of it. In screen time, I think it was a minuscule moment, but in practical time, it was a whole afternoon of getting this machine to do a 180-degree turn. I started off and I was vertical to the ground, and then they spun it 180 degrees to the other side. God, my thighs and my core were really working to the max. Then it stopped and they said cut, and the machine's supposed to right itself straight away. There was a delay, so I was left hanging on the seat. Everyone had got up to have a coffee while I'm hanging onto this thing for dear life. Let me down. Somebody let me down. Don't forget about me. There had just been a few seconds delay, but it felt like a year. My stomach muscles felt extremely proud of themselves that day. How dare y'all leave Eve Best up there like that? She was like, no, it was just for a few seconds, but it felt like a year. And I can imagine. Now, like, I don't know, the way even from Daenerys's like shit, like the way they mesh the backgrounds, the actors, and the CGI together and make a dragon battle that does not look corny, it's just really impressive. And the fact that Eve was going through all of this and like physical strain, you know what I mean? And still, she herself was just like, girl, I'm a little older, so I'm just like, I don't know about all the dragon stuff. You know, like the fact that she was experiencing all of this and still at the same time is delivering such a beautiful emotional performance. Cause like, you can't just be like, okay, rah, I'm burning you bitches up. Like Rhaenys is fighting her daughter's dragon. She is being surprised by, Vhagar. You see what I'm saying? She is knowing that this is an impossible mission, but I'm still doing it anyway. All of those emotions had to be displayed. The actress had to show us while all this stuff, while wind is blowing in her face. It's just like, y'all are doing it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So the article goes on. The interviewer asks her, on top of the physical practicality of doing it, you also have to communicate Rhaenys' emotional state exactly through all of this. And Eve says, which was a very, very intense journey for her. That was challenging to try and hold on to that. I spoke with episode director Alan Taylor. We had a session where we talked about what was going on with her emotions, because I felt very strongly that there were these really important beats that we needed to mark. In particular, the knowledge of the fact that it's very likely a kamikaze mission. It has to be, because effectively she's starting a nuclear war, and she's been the one character throughout who's done everything she can to stop them, because she's the one that knows from bitter experience. And all the younger generation are running around saying, send in the dragons, send in the dragons. She and Corlys are really the only adults left in the room who've been there and seen it, what they're facing. The context of nuclear war was very, very helpful, because that's the equivalent for us. And I knew that when she had proposed herself, that she knew she had to take that responsibility. If anyone was going to have that weight, it couldn't be Rhaenyra. She had to do it. I think she knows that she has to sacrifice herself for the team. Another journalist described her as Lancelot, Rhaenyra's Lancelot, in many ways. I felt that was very apt. There's such a deep reluctance. In the end of season 1, she makes that conscious decision not to start a war, not to nuke everybody. Everyone ever since has been saying, why didn't you nuke them? Everyone's taking it personal, and she's all the time looking at the bigger picture, all the time rising up, putting the personal aside and rising above. The article also made the point, Eve also made the point, but I'm not going to read it. She made the point that, Rhaenys also puts the personal aside and rises above when it comes to Alan of Hull and how she handled that, and, putting her personal, annoyances with Corlys annoying ass aside for the sake of this guy, this kid who didn't ask to be born. you know what I mean? Like, just raise him up. She was just like, raise him up. You shouldn't hide him, whatever. So that is another point. Eve goes on, the point is ultimately whatever we feel, however attached and however devastated we may be, the bigger picture is we must not send dragons into war. We must not go nuclear at all costs. So for her to then say, I will be the one to do this, she knows that there's no living after that. the choice to go that second return to plunge in with Vhagar, that's an absolute kamikaze mission. So she's like, by the second time that Rhaenys is doing it, she absolutely knows, like, there's no question now that, like, she's gonna die. To me, that was when she felt very samurai. It was that last stand of the noble warrior. She could have just about escaped. And that's what I said in my review. Make sure you watch it. I did reviews for every single episode of the season so far, and we'll be doing one for every single episode this season, just like we did one for every single episode of season 1. Check out the playlist for that in my description. But yeah, I was just like, yeah, she could have escaped. And they could have maybe left everybody to deal with it, but she turns because she knows that's what she has to do morally and spiritually. So then the interviewer asked a fun question. This season, we've seen actors who previously exited the show, like Meleys, reappear in flashbacks and visions. Obviously, Rhaenys is no longer alive in the show, but is there any chance for her to return in a similar context? Eve said, I'd love her to. I think she should haunt him like crazy. She should pop up everywhere he goes, giving him all kinds of advice and a piece of her mind. We'll see. Who knows? But it would be lovely. It would be lovely to see her pop up in any capacity at this point. Like, I just love Rhaenyra, and like, I just love Eve. Eve's portrayal of Rhaenyra. It was just beautiful. So if we gotta haunt Daemon, make Daemon's dreams a little bit more uncomfortable than they are already at this point, then I don't mind that. I think I would love to see her. I would love to see her. And maybe we can see Meleys too. Just bring everybody back. Just bring everybody back. Just bring everybody back. So the interviewer goes on. Rhaenys starts the series as a potential candidate for the Iron Throne, and then she sacrifices her life as part of this greater struggle. Do you think at the end of her life that she feels she's at peace with losing out on that opportunity? And Eve says, I don't think it gives her peace, but I've felt like the trajectory of season 2 was a kind of increasing detachment, letting go and letting go and letting go. She just felt like she was getting lighter and lighter until that final moment on the back of Meleys. I think that's the one moment that she finds peace, literally letting go. She's been carrying all her own stuff and pretty much everybody else's too, certainly for season 2, the weight of this unimaginable burden and just letting it go. It was truly peaceful. Whatever it is, whatever you call it, it's bliss or connection. And I really love how Eve explains it, because you can see it in her performance, right? When Meleys is looking back at Rhaenys, it's the last moment and they're just having that connection. And you can see when Vhagar's chomping the life out of Meleys and all hope is lost and Rhaenys knows she's about to fall and die. She just lets everything, she lets go of the saddle, whatever. She just is just like, okay, here it is. And it makes sense, like, after her whole life of just like the crushing weight of being a part of this system and, you know, being passed over because of the only reason being passed over because you're a damn woman for the crown, and then watching just wars and men fight and blood and all this stuff, and then Rhaenyra coming up. It's like, now you dedicated yourself to this cause, but the weight of it is still, I mean, Corlys acting crazy. It's just so much is happening. And she has been holding stuff together. Like, let's be real. She, like I said, she was one of the realest on Team Black. Like, she's been holding people together, giving Rhaenyra good counsel, like good counsel. So now when she's at this moment, you know, after having tried to prevent this nuclear war, but still deciding, hey, if we got to do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try and take out Vhagar. Like, you know, getting to this moment and being like, well, girl, y'all got it. I did the best I could. Y'all been stressing me out. Like Eve said, the weight of this unimaginable burden. She's like, all right, girl, I did it. I did what I mothered as hard as I could mother, and the rest is up to you, Rhaenyra. And that was it. I was like, oh God, y'all, I am not gonna be okay when like they about to have like the funeral services and all that stuff for Rhaenys. I'm just like, I'm not gonna be good. But yeah, I would like to square up with Vhagar. I would like, and I know I can't fight a dragon with just fists, but I would like to do it. I don't know if I gotta call it Eren Yeager, but if I could just, you know what I mean, use my fists on Vhagar, that's what I want to do. Cause like, you really snatched a mother from us. You will pay. Amen. You will pay. On that note, thank y'all so much for watching. Love y'all so much, and I'll check y'all out later. Peace. All right, y'all, make sure that you're going to www.zaraxia.com. When you join the wait list there on the site, you will be the first to be notified when I drop my sequel. Also, you'll immediately get chapter 1 of my upcoming sequel of the upcoming book sent to your email as a PDF. So check that out. Also, this is a different excerpt from my upcoming book, so you definitely want to pause to read if you're trying to get your life. Keep in mind that this upcoming book, this sequel, is following up the first book that is already released called Zaraxia, Wrath of the God King. I released it a few years ago. It was my introduction to writing fantasy and stuff, so just go easy on me. But either way, as you can see here, it's given 4.9 stars. It's given 4.9 stars. So yeah, check out Zaraxia, Wrath of the God King while you wait for Zaraxia, The Vengeance of Coldwind, right? And go to Zaraxia.com, sign up, join the wait list, get your free chapter. Thank you so much.